questions on this particular one.
Yeah, maybe let me then ask
Yes.
that question. Minister, Ms. Silo referred you to the recommendations at 154, Mr. Maree's recommendations, and then you have the approval of the National Commissioner who says there must be a national pilot project, and then you have General Dimpane's comment there, which suggests what should be done. And the implementation letter speaks about the pilot being Western Cape, the anti-gang unit, and then it says in that paragraph 8 of that implementation letter, it says in the second sentence, third line, the first units to be evaluated to determine the criteria as well as ideal post-establishment will be anti-gang units in the Western Cape and Eastern Cape, as the units have been functioning already in the approval date, on the approval date of the report. We've established in your discussion with Ms. Silo that this seems to have related largely to personnel staffing issues. Yesterday in your testimony, you said this work study dissolved the Pktt with effect. I asked you the question and you answered quite firmly that yes, the 2019 work study dissolved the Pktt. And I want, apart from the fact that this work study, nowhere does it refer to dissolving on the date of this work study. It doesn't say anywhere that the Pktt is dissolved. But I want to put a difficulty to you that to the extent that it is a pilot project that is being approved by the commissioner says there must be a national pilot project. And then General Nzima speaks about the Western Cape as being the first one to be evaluated. Surely you must accept that they were not dissolving the Pktt, because there is specific reference to we will start in the Western Cape. And posts will become available. We will do evaluations as posts become available. On a reading of these documents, there is no way that justifies a narrative or a conclusion or an understanding that this work study, on its terms as it is in 2019, dissolved the Pktt.
You would recall that I went further to say they then realized that whereas it would have meant dissolution of the Pktt, in practice, because of the phased approach of building specialized units, they realized that they were not ready to dissolve the Pktt in practice. But in theory, that is what they meant. That's why the extension was for another 6 months.
Okay. So this work study, and that's what I want to establish with you, you spoke very firmly. In 2019, this work study dissolved the Pktt. What I'm putting to you is, in this work study, in the following approvals from the National Commissioner and the implementation letter, there is no way that they speak of disbanding the Pktt as at the date of the work study. The Pktt, yes, I'm simply putting that.
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Minister, since your appointment in July 2024 until 31st of December 2024, did you get the opportunity to have Mr. Maree, Colonel Maree, presenting his work studies to you, both the 2019 and the 2024?
No.
No. So it is you who's interpreting the two documents. You're doing that on your own. He did not give you a briefing on those two documents.
Yes.
I'm going to put to you, Minister, that you are misinterpreting what Colonel Maree said in both his work studies, and you are incorrectly using those work studies to justify your decision to disband the Pktt. Because nowhere in any of those work studies did Colonel Maree say the Pktt must be disbanded. What is your answer?
My answer is that in the conceptualization of specialized units, it was expressly said that the proliferation or the existence of a number of task teams is not ideal. In other words, is not an ideal situation within SAPS. Let's establish specialized units. And when they established specialized units right from 2019, right in 2024, even in their assessments, they then established one of those units at a level called serious and violent crimes. It is in the structure from 2019, especially in 2020. I showed you the structure. And in that, or under that, serious and violent crimes, you have what they call the section. The section is called murder and robbery. And under that murder and robbery, as mandates thereof, they put sub-units. One of the sub-units that they put there is political killings. And of course, police killings, which we identified clearly yesterday. So it is expressed, not interpreted. It is expressed in black and white throughout 2019 and 2024. It's written down. And I did indicate that I had a chat with former Commissioner Stoll on the matters who indicated similar views when we had a chat on these matters.
So if Pktt is a unit within the murder and robbery unit, it's a structure within, how does that square up with his disbandment? Because surely then all that means is that it will exist, but it will form part of the murder and robbery unit. So it will be a team within the murder and robbery unit. How does that square up with its disbandment?
It square ups in the sense that it will cease to exist in the form that it is existing now. You would take the model, you would take some of the personnel, you would take some of the experience into the new specialized unit, but it tells you that they can coexist. You can't have murder and robbery, and then you have on your right-hand side, you have Pktt. Mind you, in the new setup, when we come in, we discover, if I could use that word, that there are 4 provinces that are a problem in the whole country. It's not one where Pktt is based in, which is KZN. Your problem in terms of the views of the new administration is that you are preventing investment in the country. They say South Africa is ugly because of a high rate of murders, specific. And people don't feel, they are not made to feel safe. Now, you can then take that to mean in KZN. You mean in the main, you mean in the whole country, but in the main, in the 4 provinces. Then what it means is that Pktt needs to be part now of the newly established, which is futuristic, which is not temporal, which is sustainable and budgeted for. You need to put it in the structure that is now has been processed all the time. That's where these 2 things fit in. They can't coexist. That's number one. and you are looking at sustainability, you are removing the temporal nature, but you are not firing people. You are not, at some point I said to myself, maybe I shouldn't have used the word disband. I should have used integration or absorption. But that was with retrospect, because maybe it would have been understood better than what is happening, but that's exactly what it meant.
Minister, I'm going to suggest to you that that does not square up with the thrust of your evidence, which is that the PKTT is set up by the IMC, the Interministerial Committee, and therefore it can only be disbanded by a minister or by that committee. Now, if you have studies that only go to a national commissioner and his subordinates, and they adopt the recommendations in those studies, the suggestion, if that's your suggestion, that the adoption of those recommendations can override an IMC decision that there must exist a PKTT, that does not make sense to me. Because if IMC says there must be a PKTT because the president has said so, and it must continue to exist, what is the relevance of a study that is approved by a national commissioner and his subordinates? Because on your version, the minister establishes the PKTT and only the minister can disband it.
I did yesterday indicate, and I'm still indicating, that the work study, the National Political Killings Task Team was meant to exist for 6 months. It is clearly indicated and written down. Hence, the assessment in December to say, do we do away with it or it continues to exist? They decide, that is the IMC. It must continue to exist based on the submissions and all of that, I suppose, of the steering committee. Then in January, they then say, okay, it must exist, but for the next 6 months, not permanent. Not permanent. They say another 6 months. Then it's extended and funded. And then after 6 months, they now say the extension must now take a year. Because if we assess the establishment of specialized units, especially murder and robbery, which would absorb PKTT, it's not yet that time. Then they extend it. That is why another assessment comes 2021, 2022. It's because these things were parallel. You assess